The year was 1571, a time of great exploration and conquest. Spanish ships, led by the determined and ambitious Miguel López de Legazpi, arrived on the shores of Manila. These ships, majestic and formidable, carried not just men, but the hopes and ambitions of an empire. They came looking for new lands and riches, driven by the promise of gold, spices, and the expansion of their territory. The allure of the unknown and the potential for immense wealth spurred them forward. The local ruler, Raja Suleiman, a brave and noble leader, resisted the Spanish incursion. He stood firm, determined to protect his people and their way of life from foreign domination. He fought bravely to protect his people and their land. Sadly, despite his valiant efforts, he was defeated. The clash was fierce and bloody, a testament to the courage and resilience of the native warriors. The Spanish, with their superior weaponry and tactics, claimed Manila as their own. They raised their flag, marking the beginning of a new era of colonial rule. They declared it the capital of their new colony, the Spanish East Indies, a strategic and valuable addition to their growing empire. The Spanish had come to stay. They began to establish settlements, bringing with them their customs, traditions, and a new way of life. They started to build churches and forts, symbols of their enduring presence and their intent to dominate both spiritually and militarily. They wanted to spread their religion and their power, converting the native population to Christianity and ensuring their control over the land and its people. Life in Manila would never be the same. The city transformed under Spanish rule, with new buildings, roads, and a different social order. The Spanish brought with them their language, their customs, and their way of life. They introduced new foods, clothing styles, and even new forms of governance. The Filipinos, though conquered, never forgot their own culture. They held on to their traditions, practicing them in secret and passing them down through generations. They continued to practice their traditions in secret, preserving their identity and heritage despite the pressures of colonization. The seeds of resistance were sown. The spirit of defiance and the desire for freedom simmered beneath the surface. They would one day fight back against their colonizers, driven by a deep-seated yearning for independence and self-determination. The struggle for freedom was far from over. The legacy of resistance would continue, shaping the future of the Philippines and its people. The Spanish built a walled city within Manila. They called it Intramuros, which means within the walls in Spanish. This fortified city was designed to protect the Spanish colonizers from both external threats and internal uprisings. It was their stronghold, a symbol of their power and dominance over the archipelago. The walls stood as a testament to their military might and strategic planning. Inside Intramuros, life was grand for the Spanish elite. They enjoyed privileges and luxuries that were unimaginable to the local population. They lived in large houses, often adorned with intricate designs and filled with imported goods from Europe and the Americas. They went to elegant balls where they danced and socialized, maintaining their European customs and traditions. They enjoyed the best food and wine, often indulging in lavish banquets that showcased their wealth and status. Outside the walls, life was very different for the Filipinos. The stark contrast between the opulence within and the hardship outside was evident. They lived in simple homes often made of bamboo and nipa palm, reflecting their modest means and the limited resources available to them. They worked hard to pay taxes to the Spanish, toiling in the fields and providing the labor that sustained the colonial economy. Life was a struggle, but they endured, holding on to their traditions and hoping for a better future. Intramuros was more than just a fortress. It was a microcosm of Spanish colonial rule, encapsulating the complexities and contradictions of the era. It was the heart of Spanish rule, where the most important decisions were made, and where the power dynamics of the colony were most visible. Inside its walls, the Governor-General made his laws, shaping the lives of everyone in the colony, both Spanish and Filipino. The church held great sway, guiding the spiritual life of the colony. The clergy played a crucial role in maintaining Spanish control through religious influence. Wealth flowed through Intramuros, brought in by the galleon trade. This trade route connected Manila to Acapulco, bringing in goods and riches that fueled the colonial economy. For the Filipinos, Intramuros was a constant reminder of their subjugation. The walls symbolized the barriers to their freedom and autonomy, but it also fueled their desire for freedom. The sight of the walled city inspired many to dream of a future where they could govern themselves. One day, they hoped they would break free from those walls and reclaim their destiny. The struggle for independence was long and arduous, but the dream of freedom kept their spirits alive. The Spanish wanted to trade with Asia. Manila became a vital link in their trade route. From the port of Manila, huge ships called galleons set sail. They sailed across the Pacific Ocean to Acapulco in Mexico. The galleons carried silk, porcelain, and spices from Asia. These goods were highly prized in Europe. The return journey brought silver from the Americas. The galleon trade made Spain very rich. However, the galleon trade had a dark side. Filipinos were forced to work in shipyards. They built the galleons and loaded them with goods. They paid heavy taxes to support the trade. The galleon trade enriched Spain, but it brought hardship to many Filipinos. Spain was not the only European power with an eye on Asia. In 1762, war broke out between Britain and Spain. British ships sailed into Manila Bay. They captured the city after a short siege. The British occupied Manila for 2 years. The British brought new ideas about trade and government. They allowed more freedom for Filipinos. However, their rule was short-lived. In 1764, the Treaty of Paris ended the war. Spain regained control of Manila. The brief British occupation had a lasting impact. It showed Filipinos that Spain was not invincible. It planted the seeds of new ideas about freedom and self-rule. The experience of British rule would later influence Filipino revolutionaries. Section 5. Seeds of Discontent, Early Resistance. The Filipinos never fully accepted Spanish rule. There were, many uprisings throughout the centuries. In the 1600s, Filipinos in the Visayas and Mindanao fought bravely against Spanish attempts to control their lands. These revolts were brutally suppressed. In 1744, a religious brotherhood called the Cofradia de San Jose sparked an uprising in Bulacan. Led by the charismatic Luisanda, they aimed to overthrow the Spanish. Their revolt, though ultimately crushed, showcased the Filipinos' yearning for freedom. These early acts of resistance, though scattered and often unsuccessful, revealed a deep-seated yearning for freedom. They proved that the spirit of the Filipino people remained unbroken. These early uprisings would lay the groundwork for the larger movement for independence that was to come. Section 6. The Rise of the Ilustrados. By the 19th century, a new generation of Filipinos had emerged. They were educated. They had traveled abroad. They were exposed to new ideas about liberty and equality. They were called the Ilustrados, the enlightened ones. The Ilustrados believed in peaceful reform. They wanted greater autonomy from Spain. They advocated for representation in the Spanish government. The Ilustrados wrote books, articles, and pamphlets. They used their words to awaken the Filipino consciousness. They called for change. They demanded their rights. Their writings spread like wildfire throughout the Philippines, igniting the flames of nationalism. Section 7. Rizal's pen, mightier than the sword. Among the Ilustrados, one name stood out, José Rizal. He was a brilliant writer, doctor, and thinker. Rizal wrote 2 novels that shook the foundations of Spanish rule. They were Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo. His novels exposed the abuses of Spanish friars and officials. They awakened the Filipino people to the injustices they had endured for centuries. Rizal's writings were a call to action. He inspired his countrymen to fight for their rights. He became a symbol of hope for a better future. His words were his weapons, and they proved to be mightier than the sword. Section 8. Revolution, the Cry of Pugad Lawen. In 1892, Andres Bonifacio founded the Katipunan. It was a secret society that sought complete independence from Spain. The Katipunan grew rapidly, attracting Filipinos from all walks of life. They were tired of Spanish oppression. They were ready to fight for their freedom. On August 23, 1896, the Philippine Revolution began. Bonifacio and his Katipuneros tore up their cedulas. This was their cry for freedom, known as the Cry of Pugad Lawen. The Spanish were caught off guard. The Filipinos, armed with bolos and bamboo spears, fought bravely against Spanish troops. The revolution spread like wildfire across the country. Section 9. A new colonial power, the United States. The late 19th century was a period of significant upheaval and transformation for the Philippines. The archipelago, long under Spanish colonial rule, was on the brink of monumental change. The Spanish were determined to crush the rebellion. They deployed their military might in an attempt to maintain their grip on the islands, but the spirit of resistance among the Filipinos was unyielding. They arrested Rizal and accused him of sedition. José Rizal, a prominent figure in the fight for Filipino rights, became a symbol of the struggle. His writings and actions inspired many to join the cause. On December 30, 1896, Rizal was executed by firing squad in Manila. His death was meant to be a warning, but it only served to ignite further resistance. His death outraged the Filipinos. Across the archipelago, people mourned and vowed to continue the fight. Rizal's martyrdom became a rallying point for the revolution. It fueled their determination to fight for their freedom. The revolutionaries, inspired by Rizal's sacrifice, intensified their efforts against the Spanish colonial forces. However, the Filipinos' hard-won victory would be short-lived. Just as they began to see the fruits of their struggle, a new foreign power emerged on the horizon. As the revolution raged, another power entered the fray: the United States. The Spanish-American War brought American forces to the Philippines, altering the course of the revolution. In 1898, the United States declared war on Spain. This conflict, driven by American interests in the region, would have profound implications for the Philippines. The Spanish fleet was defeated in Manila Bay. The decisive victory by the U.S. Navy marked a turning point in the war, and signaled the decline of Spanish colonial power in the region. The United States, with the support of Filipino revolutionaries, captured Manila. This collaboration, however, was fraught with tension and differing visions for the future. On December 10, 1898, the Treaty of Paris was signed. This treaty ended the Spanish-American War and redrew the map of colonial possessions. Spain ceded the Philippines to the United States. The islands, which had fought so hard for independence, found themselves under a new colonial ruler. The Filipinos, who had fought so hard for their independence, were once again under foreign rule. The sense of betrayal and disappointment was palpable among the revolutionaries. The struggle for true freedom would continue. The fight for independence was far from over, and the Filipino people would persist in their quest for self-determination.